Welcome to CQ Blind Hams, your source for everything amateur related, tutorials, radio reviews, and so much more. Come on in and stay a while.
Hey folks, I'm Mike, VO1AX, and I'm located in Newfoundland, Canada, which is about 1,500 miles northeast of Maine, in the northwest Atlantic. And today, I thought I'd do an audio overview of my amplifier, which is the Ameritron ALS1300. Now, I guess you guys have followed me a little bit on the main Blind Hams emailing list, which I haven't been on for a while. But it is what it is. But I thought I'd give an audio tutorial of it, a little bit of an overview for those that aren't really familiar with the amplifier, if they're thinking about purchasing one, and kind of how simple that it is to operate, especially if you have a TW1 alongside. So, just to give a bit of background info on this unit, I purchased it in 2018 from an estate in Ontario, Canada. It's a 2012 model. Running the numbers after I got it home, I checked with Ameritron on the serial, and apparently it was a 2012 model. So, according to the manual, though, the gentleman wrote 2014, so I don't know what that's about. But it's a 2012 model. MFJ has a tendency to be very, very vague on things. In the manual, if you download the PDF, and it's available on the Ameritron site, if you can even get to that site. I mean, they've done a lot of changes to their site now, and, you know, you got to do the searching and everything. It's not straightforward anymore. It'll say in the manual that the amplifier is 1200 watts out, 80 or 90 watts typically for 1200 watts output. I can't remember if it says SSB or CW. I think it might say SSB, but not quite 100% sure. But no more than 100 watts. And this is where I'm leading. If you're thinking about buying the post-Ameritron products, which I think are all MFJ, I don't care what you call it. If you buy a new AL1300 or you buy a new AL82 or an AL80B, I consider it MFJ. But anyway, the manual says 80 to 90 typically for 1200 watts out, and no more than 100 watts drive. Now, that's it, plain and simple. Now, you would look at that and say, okay, 80 to 90, sure, but that means this amplifier can take 100 watts. Well, it can't. It really can't. And if you look at my YouTube video, a couple of you probably already seen it, I did a bench test on all bands with 100 watts. And I blew two finals. Two MOSFETs, MRF 150s, as a result. And the amplifier didn't just go bang either. That's it. Game over, tilt. The problem started happening about 6 weeks after I did my bench test. Low power output on 10 meters, low power output on 12 meters before these trip circuits would cut in, and I'm talking like maybe 15 watts of drive, getting 400 watt out, and it would trip. It did allow things up to a dummy load, but then it would trip. And this went on for about 6 weeks after the bench test. So they started about 6 weeks after the bench test and took about another month to come to fruition. And then one night I just switched it on and boom, she wouldn't key up. Didn't mind that so much for the first month after the bench test and during the problematic period, because I wasn't much of a 10 meter 12 user anyway. But 15 to 160 worked fine. Until one day I just switched it on and she wouldn't key up on any bands tripped. So be careful with that, because I'll tell you why I wanted to do a bench test. I was getting 1200 watts out of this amplifier with 60 watts of drive on 160, 80, 40, 20, the bands I'd operate. 60 watts would give me 1200 watts out. So why not test it? The amplifier is supposed to be able to take 100 watts to drive, and I was getting 1200 with 60, so I had another 40 watts to go. So I bench tested, and I got 1650, 1700 watts, something like that, with 100 watts to drive. And then, like I said, 4 to 6 weeks after I did my bench test, problems started happening. So I think MFJ needs to revitalize the manual on these rigs a little bit, and basically say, if you exceed 1200 watts, you're going to damage the amplifier. No splatter may occur, you'll be on linear, whatever, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You'll damage the amplifier. So take my advice if you guys are planning on buying this unit. Now, it's a good unit. I got it home, and it's functioned great since I got it back from Ameritron in July. We put it in the CQ Worldwide contest and did 40 hours of straight operating with it. On all bands, fine. Absolutely fine. Whatever 1200 watts is, that's your drive. Don't exceed it. I haven't pumped it up to 1200 watts since I got it home. I've been babying it and treating it basically like an 811H. So whatever I get out of 40 watts of drive, that's what we get. That's what I do. And that amounts to about, depending on the voice on the microphone, 900 watts for some. I get, I think, about 750 with my voice, because I got sort of a higher voice. I don't have a deep, boomy voice. So it's about anywhere from 700 to 800 watts or something like that on peaks on SSB. Now you can probably hear it in the background. It's a fairly noisy piece of equipment. So that's my advice. Like, MFJ needs to revitalize that manual and say 1200 watts, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you exceed 1200 watts, you're going to damage your amplifier. And it cost me about $700 to repair. I had to ship it down and get it repaired, and 2 MRF 150s had to be replaced on PA number 1. I think it was PA 1 or 2. I can't remember which. I think it was number 1. And the way this amp is designed, if PA 1 craps out, you ain't getting nothing. Which is a poor design in my opinion. They should have designed this amplifier to run at half power. There's no reason why they can't. There's 2 25 amp power supplies in the main power supply cabinet. There's no reason why one can't run over the other, but hey, you know. And it's not a cheap amplifier. The 1306 is like $4,699 Canadian at Radio World in Toronto. Now you can get a nice ACOM 1200S for that, with newer design LMOS, what do they call them? LMOS devices, LDMOS. Those RX 180s. Great devices. Can handle 1500 watts key down all day long. But the 1200S is rated for 1200 watts. So, you know, I think there's some drive issues with them, which is why they're a little fragile. I don't think they can take a lot of big drive, which probably the older design can take a little bit more tolerance. But anyway, I digress. So it is a bit of a poor design. I mean, they could have designed it to run on half power if you had problems. The MRF 150s are solder-ins. There's no reason why they couldn't be plugged in. And the board where the MOSFETs are way down deep. You got to remove like a dozen boards to get at the PAs to do any work on it. So you think they would have changed that since this amp came out. Like I said, this is a 2012 model. I think they came out in like 2010 or something. But I digress. Since I got it home, it's been good to me. Touch wood. And it ran well in the contest, floating around a kilowatt, which is my advice. Again, if you're going to buy one of these things, make it a kilowatt SSB tops, 500 watts CW, 250 digital. I'm playing in the FT8 contest as well, the Blind Hams FT8 contest, so I've been running this thing around 200, 250 watts. So if you keep to those numbers, and remember, 1200 watts is 1200 watts. If you get 1200 watts with 40 watts of drive, no more. Doesn't matter if your rig can do 150. No more. Don't exceed the 1200 watts at all. But I'd use that 200 watts for headroom for SSB operation at the very best. And like I said, maybe 500-600 watts CW and maybe 200 or 300 digital. Split the hairs on it. So let's get to the recording. Let's get to the to the amplifier itself. It's in two pieces. You've got an RF deck, which is about 11 inches wide, probably 10 inches tall, and it's 19 inches from front to back. That's excluding knobs. That's including knobs, I guess. It's about 19 inches. It's got a row of vents on the top left, and down on each side, close to the tabletop, you've got a row of vents, one on each side. There's cold air coming out of the left side. And there's warm air on the right side and warm air on the top. So you got three sets of cooling vents. Starting off on the top left, you got 2 meters. The one on the very left shows your amperages when you're keying up and that sort of thing. The one to the right is your multimeter, so that shows your forward reflected power, SWR, that sort of thing. To the right of the meter is your band switch, and as you can hear the clicks of the relays in there. So you got 160, 80, 40, 30. 20 doesn't have a loud click because it shares the band pass with 30. 17, likewise 15 shares the filter with 17. 12, 10 is the same thing, and this has the 10-12 meter board in it. No real loud click for 10 because it shares the board. And then remote. Let's see, I was on 20, so 160, 80, 40, 30, back here. Sometimes I skip it. 160, 80, 40, 30, 20. Below the band switch, you've got your row of LED lights. They're all red for anybody who has some vision, or even if you've got one of these light sensing devices, that gives you an audio feedback when there's light. So that's all your band LEDs below the band switch, and they go from left to right, 160, 80, 40, so on. Follow the band selector. Below your amperage meter, you've got your front ALC selection knob for setting up the ALC. Now, I don't have the ALC set up. I should, but I don't. I use the drive from the radio. Beside the ALC knob, you have an ALC LED light that lights. Next to that is your SWR trip light, which is bright red when there's an SWR trip. Next to that is your PA light. That comes on if there's an imbalance in the PAs, and when I blew the crap out of it, that light would light as soon as I touched the foot switch. And lastly, to the right of that is your green transmitting light, and that lights up when you transmit. So I can see fairly well these lights because I have a little bit of vision. So basically, my thing is, okay, if I see two lights, okay, 2 lights only, the red band light and the green transmission light, I'm good. But but anyway, if you got a good SWR match and everything else should be fine, using your talking watt meter or whatever source you're using. To the right of the transmission switch, we have a knob for the multimeter. And, okay, I've got it all the way to the right. So starting to the right, working left, counterclockwise, you've got HV1. It shows your voltages because there's 2 power supplies in that cabinet, and I'll explain the power supply in a minute because it's not very important. There's nothing on it. There's no lights. There's no buttons. It's just a box with a vent on top. That's it. So you got your HV1 to the left. 1 click, HV2. Then you got ALC. Then you got your PA. This is for your amperages and stuff. And then you got your reflected power. Now, I always leave this over on HV1. To the right of that, you got a standby operate switch. And then the last switch over, you got your power switch. And you can probably hear it on now, so I do have the amp on. I'll just switch it off. That's the shutdown sequence. So it shuts off different things. It shuts off its control system and switches off the power supply out, which is out in the other room, which has about a 6-foot cord on it, and I've got a slot here in the wall. I'm at my cottage, by the way, so we got basically a shack spare room in our main bedroom, and there's a wall between the two that I can pass the power supply connecting cable, which is about 6 feet. I think they call those Jones connectors. It's a big, wide, flat, plastic-like connector. And it has dots on the top. I don't think they had blind folks in mind when they designed it, but you can. You can feel the dots, and the dots go up right, so you can line it up perfectly. I don't have enough vision to see that kind of stuff, so I have to use touch when it comes to that. So let's flick on Alice, which is what I call her, for ALS. And this is the startup sequence. The meter's light, fans are on. And we're good to go. I didn't hear that second click. I hope my power supply isn't I'm just going to take a step out. Yes, my power supply is going. And I'll probably take the phone out. I'm recording this on the phone, so I hope it's okay. I'll take the phone out in the other room just to let you hear the power supply. It has a little bit of higher pitched fan noise. So that's pretty much it. I'll fire up the gear. I'll get the gear on here. I'm playing in the FT8 contest, so what I'll do is I'll go off to frequency. And I'll just tune up with the TW1. So let me turn this off. I have to change the mic input on my 1200. And let me have a look. I don't have my computer turned on at the moment, so I'm getting down and dirty with the display here. Yeah, we'll set up around 17. Let's see. Just find a good clear frequency somewhere. Yeah, activity. Okay, we're good there. Band selector to 20, 160, 80, 40, 30. I always keep skipping that. 160, 80, 40, 30, 20. And I'm going to set my power. I kind of use the FT8 program to help me out with tuning and stuff in that part of the band. So we're going to set my drive power down to 0 and then count up. 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. And there's still traffic there. There must be an SSB contest as well. I'm going to move off there. So I'm going to tune my antenna. Switch to RTTY. Turned off the tuner to cancel the values, and I'm going to tune. Okay. So we're tuned.
The forward power is 30 watts.
And my SWR.
The SWR is 1.521.
1.5, that's a little iffy. I engage the amplifier, just like that, because I'm on 20 meters. And let's check the power.
The forward power is 661 watts.
Okay, you've heard my computer speaker. I've got it sitting on top of the amplifier when I was doing FT8. My laptop has an external USB sound card, and so let's just see. Hopefully,
the forward power is 657 watts.
Yeah, I think the first number was 661, so there's a bit of flux there. So we're tuned, just like that. Go back to SSB. Is the frequency in use, please? Is the frequency occupied? And let's just, hopefully I can get a reading from my SSB peaks.
The forward power is
Audio.
311.
So that's
watts.
average.
The forward power is 829 watts.
So there was a peak of 829 with my 4, which is what I used to peak. So it's that simple. Let's go to 80 meters. Switch the band selector to 80. Amps in standby. And let me find the bands. There we go. Number 1200. And we'll look at the frequency I'm on. Way down to the lower part of the band. So I'm going to go up to 30 on that frequency. Shouldn't be nobody on there today. 3740. Okay, there we are. Amps in standby. Band is on 80 meters. I don't hear anything. So we're going to go and tune the antenna. Key up. And I guess we're tuned, but I'll clear it again. There we go.
The SWR is 1.421.
1.421. Amp and operate.
The forward power is 758 watts.
Power's a little higher on 80. But there we are. Back to SSB. Is the frequency in use, please? Is the frequency in use? Now let's check my SSB.
The forward power is
Audio.
380.
So around 380, 400 watts average.
The forward power is
4.
223
I missed it that time.
watts.
But anyway, you get the idea. It's that simple. Change band, tune up, and away to go. And again, if you got enough vision, you can see two lights, your red band light and your green transmission light. All's great. So yeah, what else can I say? It's a fairly good amp, though. I mean, I'm generally happy with it. I would like for MFJ to revise their manuals so that, you know, people don't do what I did. You know, 1200 watts with 60 watts. This thing should handle 100 watts. The manual says so, no more than 100 watts. 80 to 90 typically. So even with 60 watts at 1200 watts out, 80 watts was pushing me to 1400. And according to the manual, you know, I was still in safety. I was still in a safe zone. Up to 100 watts. But once I hit 100 watts and got like 1700 and some odd out, like I said, 4 weeks later or something, problems started happening. So generally, that's a good device. It's pretty good. It's expensive for what it is. The 1306, you can get, you know, you can get a nice amp for going on $4,700 Canadian. I mean, you can get that Gemini out of Britain, the ACOM 1200S, which are slightly more better, I guess. They have a better design, computer control, all that fun stuff. So you can diagnose your own stuff. You know, you can go through settings and that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's Alice. She's been doing good so far during the FT8, so I'm happy with it. Like I said, we put 40 hours of contesting, SSB contesting on it, and it worked fine. Not much of a CW guy, but one of the operators we have here is, and he runs at 500-600 watts without a problem. You can also get all kinds of options. There's the ARI 500, which is basically an automatic band switch. I think the 1306s now have that all built in. If you got the appropriate cable, you can, you know, when you change band on the radio, the amp follows you. You can get the right tuner cable for your radio to go to the MFJ tuner. You can hit the tune button on your transceiver, typically with the 590 SG. Now, I know you guys love these Kenwood 590s. You know, they're the holy grail, apparently, of the blind ham world, but not for me. I'm a Yaesu fanboy. And I don't mind workarounds using computers and using what vision I have. But you can get the appropriate cabling. You can just basically turn your 590 into a 1000 watt transceiver, because you can do everything on the front panel. You change bands, the amp follows you, you hit the tune button on your radio, the MFJ tuner tunes, and great setup. If interested, I'm probably going to list this one after the ARRLDX, and not because I'm dissatisfied with it. You know, the work was great by MFJ. They warranted the repair, and I've been sticking to the guidelines. It's just that I want to get some other things. I want to get into maybe some personal Wires X Yaesu node for myself, which is $1,000 if you get the two handhelds. I also have to replace a beam that came down during the storm of November. And I want to go back to, I think I'm going to look at getting either a kilowatt pre-MFJ AL80 series Ameritron or an 811H. It's just that if anything goes wrong with these puppies, you know, it's a hassle. It's very expensive to repair. And right now, even though the Chinese tubes and so on, there's a couple of people in my club that are very skilled at soldering and that sort of thing, and they would be able to help me repair any tubed amplifier that I may purchase. Put in a tube, if any resistors and so on got to be replaced, whatever. One of the guys actually is planning on rebuilding the old 811H that I had. He's pretty much ordered the whole kit from Ameritron, and he's going to build it. So I'm planning on listing it if anybody might be interested in. I'm not going to list it on QTH, but if somebody wants to contact me off the QLog users list, or look me up on QRZ, we're happy to discuss it with you. You can even Zoom call me if you want. So I'm hoping to list it so I can get some other things. I have a wife that oversees my radio budget, so you know I could do with what I want. You know, I could do what I want with what I got. as long as there's no real new expenditure. So, I mean, I'm going to ship this amp out, hopefully, get back $2,500 Canadian in my pocket, and get my tubed amplifier and get my Yaesu node. So, and plus the beam's got to go up. I'm going to order a new beam in probably June. So there we have it. That's the ALS1300. Hope you can get something out of this, and you know, think about getting one. I think the 600 is just as easy to operate. I don't have one, but I think the 600 actually has more of a push button thing for bands, I think, instead of a knob. But somebody can correct me behind the scenes when they're drinking their coffee. Alright, so that's it. Hopefully I can get another one in. I don't know what I'll do next time. I might do the 102 next time, because I have purchased another Fox Tango 102 station, which was my dream radio. And in actual fact, the one I have now is the very first rig I made my first HF contact on, which is kind of cool. So maybe I'll do a review on that and fire that puppy up and tune it up and so on. Alright, hopefully you guys will get to get something out of this, and we'll get to hear it. I guess if it doesn't make it onto the Blind Hams podcast, we won't. Anyhow, guys and girls listening, thank you very much for this, and enjoy it, and wish you best 73 from the shack of VO1AX. Take care, guys.